Good afternoon, folks from the Waste Reduction Network. I'm glad that you all can join us today. Today's August 7th. It's 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we've got a quarterly webinar for you all today. Thanks for joining us. A couple of housekeeping notes I'll mention right now. This webinar is going to be recorded. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have the link ready for you all so you can see, the whole thing at your own pace. Also, all the attendees are going to be in listen-only mode. So that means that, your microphone is muted. And if you have questions, we ask that you put them in through the Q&A box or ask during the Slido portion of this webinar. Thank you very much for respecting that. Today, I'd like to just say a quick note. I think a lot of y'all know me. I'm Bruce Long, also known as Robert Long, and I work in the Industrial Energy and Decarbonization Office, supporting the Waste Reduction Network. I'm very pleased to be able to introduce a colleague of mine who will be supporting on the Better Building side, Ms. Marta Drisma. Marta brings a diverse skill set to her role as a fellow at the DOE with a wealth of experience in sustainability and certification of operations. Prior to joining DOE, she served as the Director of Certification Operations at GBCI, overseeing the comprehensive delivery of LEED for that organization. And she's had a suite of green business and sustainability products for nearly a decade. She works closely with reviewers and project teams throughout all aspects of their engagement. She also has a Master of Science in Interior Architecture and Design from Drexel University and previous experience working with commercial and academic clients as part of an architectural practice in the city of Philadelphia. So welcome, Marta.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for such a warm welcome. And I am so excited to be part of this amazing network.
Thank you. So now what we're going to get into is the meat of our webinar today. So we have an agenda for you. Basically, we've gotten through the welcome introductions, and I'm going to start presenting the speakers. Today's speakers come from two automotive companies. One of the things that we wanted to do was to highlight the experiences that they had with a recent training that we offered virtually through our virtual implant training network. It was a waste reduction training, and it went for about 8 weeks. And what happens with the virtual implant trainings as opposed to the in-person types of implant trainings is that the attendees are the ones that go out into their plants and collect the data, develop their conclusions and analyses, and then find savings opportunities, and then quantify them. And then the last week they kind of do a report out of what they found. So we have two women from two great companies that are going to share with us their experiences from this training, and also what they're able to do with it past the training. So our first speaker today, actually, I think, don't we have some Slido? Okay, so I'm just going to show a couple of slides right here for folks. These are the companies that are in the Waste Reduction Network. We've got a great group of about 62 or 63 companies, and we're working, we're definitely able to handle more. So, if you have any other colleagues in other Better Buildings, Better Plants, Better Climate Challenge partners, feel free to let them know that they're able to join this network. Next slide, please. Just to give you a quick reminder on the team, we've had a little bit of a turnover. I'm still here. I was working with y'all during the pilot. John O'Neill is the technical program lead from the Industrial Energy and Decarbonization Office. I think AMO, we probably should have taken that out. And then you just met Marta. ICF is supporting us with a young man named Nader Sabani, who's very on top of things, and I hope you'll get to know him as well. And then we have, of course, Jasmine Paget from Retech Advisors, who's also doing a great job. So next. We have a few pages on the Better Building Solutions Center that have resources, and we're constantly updating these as things go, as we make them. So I think the most recent resource was a waste energy calculator. And so we definitely invite people to view that page and access those results. There are also going to be new case studies and such when they appear, when they're ready. Next slide, please. Just to give you a quick idea for the reduction network, we do ask that companies come in with a goal. They can use one of the goals in the buckets we have right here, the categories, diversion, absolute zero, intensity, and so forth. Or you can do a solution on a solution center. That's another option. And once you're in the network, you'll be eligible for data analysis and support with your data, technical support, other resources and solutions, and then recognition, and working group participation. Next slide, please. So now we're going to ask everyone, before we get to the speakers, to go to slido.com, where we have some polls to ask for y'all. The easiest thing to do is, if you're either on a computer or have a smartphone, mobile device, go to slido.com and enter in the code WRN. We'll give the folks a few more seconds to get on there. And just to make clear, the code is WRN, not DOE. So our first question is, what sector-based working groups will be most relevant to you? And you can select all the ones that apply. And we'll give folks about 30 seconds to respond and then show the results real quick. So. All right, transportation equipment's coming up to the lead. Okay, we're getting some pretty good responses. Keep them coming. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 more seconds for folks to finish up. Okay, good. Well, I think that should take care of it for the first one. If you can jump to the next one, please, Jasmine. There we go. And so we want to also ask if there are other sector-based working groups that will be relevant to you besides the ones that you first responded to. This is a word cloud, by the way. So there you go. Yeah, all right. Oh, green byproducts. Okay, good. Excellent. Well, I think we're getting a pretty good listening class job there. Food processing. Excellent. Okay, good. I think we'll give people a few more seconds real quick to finish up. Okay, well, I think we can close this one down and move on to the next one. So which solution-based working groups are of most interest to you? For example, remanufacturing, composting, recycling. We're looking to see, what type of solution to waste is most important for y'all. So, recycling, there we go. packaging. Okay. We'll give folks a few more seconds just to wrap up real quick. And I'm posting. Okay, very good. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, good. Well, we'll go ahead and close this one down. I think there's one person just to finish. There you go. Employee engagement. Okay, very good. Excellent. I think we can then move to the next one. Okay, so that was our last poll question. So thank you all very much for participating and for providing that important feedback. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got two great women from two great companies. I want to introduce real quick, first, Alanie Hooton from Honda Development Manufacturing of America. She is an environmental engineer at Honda Development Manufacturing, working at the Indiana auto plant with 7 years of environmental and safety experience. And so she's going to be talking about the waste reduction that they do at Honda, as well as some of the benefits that they gained from the training. And then Tami Moore is a safety and sustainability manager at Navistar. And I just realized Navistar has been around for almost 200 years. But Tami has more than 25 years of experience in occupational safety and more than 12 years of experience in environmental sustainability. So I think we'll start with Alanie Hooton, and whenever you're ready, Alanie, go on ahead.
Hey, thanks, Bruce. Yeah, so today just going to go over a few items gained from doing the virtual in-plant waste reduction training. So next slide. So first, just an overview of the Indiana auto plant for Honda. We are just right outside of Greensburg, an hour south of Indianapolis. The facility is a stamping, welding, painting full assembly plant for the Civic hatchback and the CRV. It's about a little over 1,600 acres is the whole area there. And then as far as waste goes, so the two things are kind of thinking about how waste that's coming out of this plant, one being the product itself, so any scrapping of the product. When you think of a car, tires, glass from windows, we got seats, metal from the stamping of the bodies of the material, we got plastic from bumpers and the dashboards. So all of that, finding homes, if there's any scrap from that waste. And then the other one is process related waste. So that could be oils and greases from the machines themselves, paint, any waste paint residues there, sludges. We do have a wastewater treatment facility on site that has sludge waste, paint sludges as well, and then parts packaging. So the next few slides I have here going over the hierarchy of controls that we reviewed during the training. So some solutions on first just reducing the amount of waste, trying to find opportunities to eliminate the waste up front, and then going from there, finding other sources to either recycle or reuse the product. And then ultimately we do, I guess we follow the same hierarchy at the plant, and then any other waste that we cannot find a reuse, we typically do a waste to energy, or we do have one waste stream that we do landfill for regulatory requirements is our wastewater sludge. So that's just kind of the overview of our waste streams and what I'll be covering today, but next slide. So the first one here, source reduction, this has been a a long time project prior to me, but something that I didn't initially consider as a source reduction. It was just kind of inherent to the process of using returnable containers. But what we find, especially with post-COVID, is the amount of abnormals with supply chain and the increase in that packaging has gone up. So finding ways to manage that. So we do have a packaging team that works with suppliers on setting up what those returnables would look like. Any new model changes or any new vehicles that we'll be producing at the plant, they do have to go through a whole team to set up those returnable packages. So we have 3 million containers in that supplier loop, and there is an approval process. If these materials can't be shipped in the returnable packaging, if it has to be shipped in a cardboard, they do have to go through an approval process. So, and then of course, any parts that are not shipped in returnables, we have cardboard waste, we have plastic wrap, bubble wrap, we have pallets. So part of the resources required to manage those is of course the manpower to handle that material, additional equipment may be needed, and then space. So that's this has been one project that's been always ongoing. There's been changes to packaging. So sometimes there's returnables with maybe plastic or cardboard sleeves that sometimes have to get recycled or disposed of. So this is just an ongoing maintenance of adding additional returnables. So next slide. And this project here is another source reduction, trying to find ways to reduce the waste. So we're not trying to find or look for return or recycling options. So this one, for instance, is a sealer. And this is actually a waste to energy waste stream. But there is about 200 drums annually disposed of in this process. So this is our door line where we're adding sealers to the door frame. And you can see the 2 drums here in the corner. And what was changed or found to reduce that waste source is adjusting the plunger. So instead of that concave surface, they were able to modify the existing unit to a flat surface. So just changing that style of plunger, estimated about 44 pounds of sealer that was able to be reused. That product didn't have to go out as waste in the drum and the liner there. So that investment was paid back within a month with the amount of sealer waste and product use that they could still use. So next slide. All right, and this one is not a source reduction, but it was one that this past year we were able to find an alternative use for our RTO media. So we have 3 regenerative thermal oxidizers in our paint department, and there is a ceramic material that is used to kind of hold that heat and transfer it for VOC abatement. And then this media has to be changed out. It is we have 3 units, about every other year that one of the units are getting changed out. So that was previously sent out as waste to energy. And then we found a vendor that was able to use this material for soil remediation. They were able to grind it up. It's a ceramic, so a clay material that they were able to use for soil abatement. So that was 60 tons of waste for that change out, able to divert from a waste to energy to a reuse. And then next slide. So our current challenge, working through, this was kind of a topic used during the training, is finding ways to help improve our plastic recycling. One, finding plastic vendors, recycling vendors is difficult. And a lot of times they only accept certain plastics. So like our plastic thin films and wraps, Those are pretty common. We're able to find some outlets for those. Where it gets a little bit more difficult is like, for instance, in this picture here, different plastic pieces. And sometimes the hard thing there is also on collection. So there could be a process where a couple different pieces are being generated and they may be different grades of plastic that have to be kept separate. So understanding what kind of grades the plastic is, understanding that rebate or cost depending on the grade, and then how does the vendor need that material collected. So during this past spring, we did go out and visit the vendor that we've been using and understanding their segregation process. And then our goal for the years, Indiana does have a circular economy work group. So trying to work with finding more local vendors within the state to maybe find some of those niche plastic recycling opportunities. And then next slide. So just for instance, on our collection, not only is it getting the right containers out there. So this is an example of one that we trialed. It allowed you to look from the side if it's contaminated or not, because that was the big thing, is making sure that these plastic waste streams were not being contaminated. This one specifically, we put out there, and then a day or so later, we went to check on it and realized that they had switched to a different type of plastic piece. So that one was kind of another aha moment that, with the ever-changing models and supplier types, we're getting different types of plastics. But having the visuals to training to say it's only these types of plastic grades was a big one focused on right now. And because a lot of times people think plastic is plastic, a plastic bottle and a plastic grocery bag can be recycled together. And, it's just trying to enforce and train team members on what types of plastic are truly able to be recycled together. And then focusing on those collection areas with the biggest volume, whether that be volume or maybe rebate, just so we focus on certain areas and not try to get overwhelmed with a lot of different plastic pieces that might be out there. So that's kind of where we've been focusing now on training, visuals, and then auditing, making sure we're providing feedback back to the teams when they're doing well or not on keeping those pieces segregated. And next slide, that might be it for those. Okay. Yep. So I guess big takeaways from that training is the source reduction. A lot of times, I spend more time on whenever we get a waste, what do we do with it versus trying to focus more upstream, similar to the returnable packaging. If we didn't put those solutions in place for returnables, then we're having, 4 or 5 times the amount of cardboard. So taking the time to first reduce that source would alleviate the need to put in all these solutions on the back end there. Becoming more involved in construction projects. So that's one that we're always doing some type of construction, renovation, add-ons. So it's important to get in on those conversations early on with the waste contractor to help reduce and divert that waste, because whenever it gets all mixed together, it's again, we're trying to solve the problem on the back end. So that was had a section on construction waste that was really helpful. And then more in-depth waste audits. So during this training, doing those waste audits, there were a lot of things that that I took from that. For instance, our plastic wrap, plastic films, that was a pretty straightforward waste stream. We had a vendor. We send a lot of plastic wraps out. So, I thought that was a pretty clean waste stream, not one to focus on, but actually going out and doing the audits and seeing where we were having contamination in certain areas was definitely helpful. Next slide, that might be it. Yep. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alanie. That was really cool. I think now we'll turn it over to Tami Moore of Navistar. Whenever you're ready, Tami, go ahead.
There we go. Unmute. Okay, maybe you can hear me now. Okay, Tami Moore. I'm the Safety and Sustainability Manager for the parts distribution centers in Navistar. We have 10 PDCs, 7 that are in the US, 2 in Canada, and 1 in Mexico. If you'd like to, I don't see my presentation yet. Oh, there we go. Okay, if you want to go ahead and switch to the next slide. So Navistar falls under the Traton umbrella, which also includes Scania, MAN, and Volkswagen truck and bus. You can see some of our different Navistar brands at the bottom of the slide. International IC Bus. We have International Used Truck Centers. Fleetride is our Navistar brand parts. And then our On Command is a platform for connectivity so you can see where your trucks are at any time, which is great. Something we've been really proud of. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. So I identified our Midwest and National. It's actually 2 PDCs under one roof in Joliet, Illinois. This facility is just under 1 million square feet. So it's slightly, I think it's a little less than 900,000 square feet. So it's a pretty big facility. They're super organized, already have some great sorting practices in place with identified hoppers and receptacles. They have returnable containers that we started implementing. We have some customers that we send 60% of our parts to or 60% of the amount of shipments that we send out are to specific customers. So we've identified ways to reduce the amount of cardboard we're using by using returnable containers. And you'll see those in that gray plastic totes on the right. So go ahead and move to the next slide. So my focus was looking at landfill diversion. So 75%, approximately 75% of the waste going into our compactors for landfill consisted of plastic wrapping, binding, packaging materials, like dunnage, those types of items, cardboard cores and other pieces, label backing, office paper. And you'll see from the pictures that I shared in the slide that they can be easily sorted further. So they have those great practices in place already, just identifying that they needed to be put in a receptacle rather than the garbage. However, those items were then being put in the compactor. So go ahead and move to the next slide. So when I initially did some comparison, we were on the path to increasing our landfill waste this year over last year. So that was a huge concern. So I'm looking at reducing this by at least 40%, if not more, before the end of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to exceed that goal that we set. And if you'd like to move to the next slide. So the waste streams that we have found are most challenging are primarily plastic. Just like Alanie said, it's very difficult to find an outlet for plastic recycling. So those are one of the items that we're trying to find an outlet locally. And then it also depends on logistics too, like where you are in the United States. Not everyone has the same recycling opportunities. So the shrink wrap is one of the most challenging for us. And so we're working on making sure we're identifying the appropriate downstreams for those items. We just met with Waste Management and they're assisting with trying to find a local downstream for us to utilize for plastic waste. as well as some other items like our label backing and the cardboard cores, which we can put in with our other cardboard. Go ahead and move to the next one. So one of the items that we're also looking at is making sure that we're reducing our waste and recycling and efforts to support our Traton sustainability initiatives. And a lot of our customers are requesting that we follow the greenhouse gas metrics. And there's a lot of other sustainability initiatives here in the US that we're trying to work on, as well as we follow ISO for a lot of our manufacturing facilities. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Some of the key takeaways from going through this process, which was a great workshop. I really appreciated the opportunity to have this workshop to work through so many different items and identify how we can better reduce our landfill waste. I've been working with sustainability initiatives for quite some time, but when you're generally working in a specific industry, you don't always have that opportunity or that awareness or visibility of other opportunities. So some of those takeaways are, we had a lot of different industries in our workshop. And so there were some other ideas that we were able to identify to help us reduce our landfill waste and those costs too. So go ahead and move to the next slide. So some of the updates that I have, so those hopper contents with the plastics and cardboard cores, etc. So we found that a lot of the cardboard waste that was in the hoppers weren't actually going into the compactors for cardboard. I'm sorry, not the compactors, the balers for cardboard. So we have two balers that were set up in the facility, one vertical, one horizontal baler for cardboard. And we were only utilizing those for items that were staged in those areas, not necessarily the hoppers. So at some point that behavior changed. So now we're working on getting that behavior back and working through that process to not put those cardboard boxes and other items in the compactor and getting them to the baler where they need to go. We're also entertaining the potential to utilize that vertical baler for plastic baling. So we may get an additional baler for that practice, depending on the vendor that we end up working with for our plastic compacting. So we're working on improving our sorting practices and horizontal baling, and eliminating hand feeding to our balers too. So one of the items that we identified for safety reasons is rather than hand feeding those balers, using a bin that we can dump from the forklift. So there's less hand feeding and safer practices for that. Paper shredding, we're working on vendor for that, for shredding paper. And for the label backing too, so that's not going into the landfill. And let's see, if you want to go ahead and move to the next slide. Oh, I had a couple more things. You can leave it right on this one, but we're looking at some alternatives to the landfill is waste to energy with waste management as well. So that was one of the other opportunities. And then we're looking at potentially sustainability parking practices. So for those who have electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, giving them the opportunity to park closer. We haven't established any charging areas yet, but that's potentially on our horizon as well. So I think that was it for me. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tammy. That was really good. I'm glad to hear y'all got a lot out of the training. I think one thing that I heard or got from both of y'all is the need to look at the source before the waste even happens, so you can understand what you may be able to use more wisely, or how you could reduce some of the waste streams that will eventually come through a production process. So I think that's probably one of our biggest takeaways as well from the training content. I think what we'll do now is you can go to Slido for the Q&A. If you haven't already done so, just slido.com, event code WRN to submit and upvote questions. And then as they come in, we will begin looking at them. So, all right, excellent. So one question from Anonymous is, are waste streams currently being used for waste energy being continually considered for true diversion, recycling, and reuse versus a destructive downcycled end? I don't know, Tammy or Alanie, if y'all want to take that on. One thing I will say is that there are some waste streams that unfortunately cannot be used in any other productive way. A good example is fiberglass tailings. So in that case, getting some energy by combustion is a way to do that. So I don't know, Alanie or Tammy, if y'all want to go ahead and answer this one.
I can jump in here. We do have, so our plant is part of a regional group. We have some plants in Ohio, Alabama, Georgia, and part of our annual goal is setting waste reduction targets and focusing on that waste to energy waste stream. Like I said, the wastewater sludge is one waste stream we do send to landfill. So, that next layer of focus is that waste to energy. So finding ways to audit those waste streams and look at what's in that and what things could we divert for recycling.
Excellent. I think we'll go on to the next one here. It says, how do you prioritize waste streams to focus? And how many examples are included extra costs for doing that prioritizing? That's an important point, because there are going to be some times when it's going to be more expensive to recycle or treat some kind of waste stream than to simply send it to landfill.
I think we focus on the quick wins too. So wherever you can reduce your waste and reduce your costs as quickly as possible to show the benefit as quickly as possible. We like those quick wins to be able to showcase.
Okay, Alanie, feel free to jump in if you want to.
Yeah, I guess the first waste stream that kind of came to my mind is our e-waste. We have a lot of plastic pieces within the car that has an electronic waste in it. So we send that material to a vendor in Tennessee. So it's a little bit more of a cost, since it's also the transportation piece of it. And those are those hard to manage plastic pieces that we don't really have manpower to fully assemble those pieces. So we do pay that cost of sending it to a vendor that's going to shred it and disassemble it more. So we do try to divert that material versus just sending it straight to like waste to energy. We also have like our dashboard. Sometimes we'll have metal pieces that have to be disassembled. So we do pay an extra cost there for them to disassemble those pieces versus sending waste to energy.
Okay, perfect, thanks. And there's one that just got voted a minute ago here. Does Honda or any companies they partner with plan to do any policy application to increase effective recycling locally or nationally? And they give you examples like source separation to increase economic viability of recycling.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Yeah, I'm not sure the pop on like actually policy piece of that. I guess that's not really, I do know at a regional level, circular economy is, our end goal of, when we get a car back, how can we take that apart and send each little piece back into remanufacturing of the car. So I do know that's an end goal, finding those vendors or means to actually disassemble that locally and getting it back into the economy. That circular economy piece is definitely a goal for the company as a whole.
Great, thanks. And the next one is, I guess, to both of y'all, says, do either of our presenters work to ensure that haulers or companies receiving the waste are actually recycling or reusing the materials and not just trashing it once it's received? I guess he says that's something we often hear about in residential recycling efforts. Now, Tami, I think you were saying you're all working with waste management.
We are, and unfortunately, they don't cover all aspects due to some costs in whatever is available in the area. So we're looking at partnering. Like I was saying, the Midwest PDC was where I had focused as a test pilot. So to implement this same process throughout the other PDCs, I have to look at what's going to be available for recycling purposes and waste purposes in those locations. So, and of course, Canada and Mexico also follow other regulations. They don't follow the same as the US. So looking at those other potential challenges, we have to make sure that we're working with the right partners. But waste management also partners with other waste haulers or designated facilities to make a more broad or have a broader scope of waste reduction.
Thank you. And I don't know, Alanie, if you want to add to that or.
Yeah, so we do have internal audits with our waste vendors. Our waste contractor that we use also goes out and does audits. So like I said, we went to the plastic vendor recently and watched them. Actually, while we were there recycling, they were grinding our the padding on the dashboards. And so yeah, we do go out and actually audit the sites to make sure that they are receiving the waste and truly recycling that.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, I would imagine, I don't know if you all know this, but you may have some kind of contractual provisions that say, when the waste hauler takes our waste, it has a certain amount has to be recycled and stuff like that. And if they don't do it, that could be a breach of contract. So in any case, and I don't know who this is directed to, but the next question says, how large is your team focused on working on these efforts, and who do you partner with internally the most? So I guess maybe they're asking if you partner with, say, another corporate sustainability team member or the maintenance section or something like that.
If you don't mind me answering, I'm fortunate to have a large corporate oversight. So we have an environmental group as well that manages sustainability. So we have that opportunity or that resource to work with them as well, which I'm working on partnering with them to identify some opportunities in Canada and Mexico, because, I'm more familiar with those opportunities in the US. However, it's not just the corporate team. I'm also working with the on-site team. That's the most important, because they're the participants that have to have those behaviors in place, and that management team there to help enforce, and keep moving that process along and making sure that we're following what we should be doing or what we say we're doing. So it's from upper management to plant side, and making sure that like that previous question, that your downstream is also managing as they're expected.
Perfect. Yeah. And then I don't know, Alanie, if you want to add to that real quick.
It's similar to Tami. I definitely work, at the plant closely with, the departments, our waste contract team. We have about 16 employees that just focus on waste. So kind of working with those team members, but we do have a regional environmental team that is more focused on that circular economy that I talked about. There's a sustainability head that's kind of working on that bigger picture piece.
Perfect. Cool. The next question seems a little similar and it's focused directly to Honda. So Alanie, if you want, feel free to answer. How does Honda plant have established methods or partners for processing various waste to be able to recycle each component of the waste stream?
It's kind of a tough one that we're kind of still in those stages. Right now, we really only have, one vendor that we're sending a lot of those. I said plastic e-waste pieces, but at the end of the day, a lot of the components itself of the car to fully recycle back, we'd either have to get more manpower on site to be able to disassemble these units into a waste stream that a vendor will take, or finding those vendors that can destruct those components with the multi materials. But that's definitely still a common piece that we're still working on is finding more vendors.
Okay, perfect. And it kind of leads into the next question. The person is asking, does either company represented partner with other companies near them to bring down diversion costs through quantity and consolidation of lower value materials, or those with smaller waste streams?
This was something that we discussed in, we had a recent environmental audit here at the corporate headquarters. And one of the, we're all looking to have zero waste, right, for all of our facilities. And one of the items here that we discussed during that audit was composting, so food wastes and things like that. And you have to generate a certain amount of tonnage to even have that opportunity with your waste hauler or your waste management company. And that's a potential, not necessarily in the near future, but in the, not too far future, hopefully, that we may have that opportunity with the local hotels. We're in a pretty populated area right outside of Chicago in the Lisle, Naperville area. And we have a lot of hotels, a lot of other industries, a lot of corporate offices around us that have on-site cafeterias. So that's a potential opportunity for us in the hopefully not too distant future, but it requires a certain amount of input to have that opportunity.
Excellent. I know a couple of questions that come to my mind, if you're interested in answering them. I noticed both of y'all are from the transportation products sectors. And one of the waste streams that I've always heard about, this is perhaps more in the engine and transmission making, is swerf, and how to deal with swerf, because those are little small shavings of metal that are connected with other fluids, oils and stuff like that. And I wasn't sure if y'all found like a policy or a method for dealing with that kind of waste stream.
We have our metal recycler takes some of our metal shavings, but actually that is something recently we've had a waste stream that's usually been more dry, solid metal shavings that has more of the oils and greases. So, looking to add an oil separator to help kind of clean those fines up more. But that is, a waste stream that we do have, and we've historically sent to a metal recycler.
Okay. And so presumably that metal recycler would separate out the oils and greases and fluids and stuff.
Yeah, traditionally it's been a pretty solid material. We actually just had some drums where we've brought them in and they've looked at it and it's got more fluids than normal. So we do have to look into either an oil separator or another means to pull some of those fluids out of that. But
and Tami, I don't know if y'all have any insight on swerf and how to deal with it.
Well, unfortunately, I personally don't. I work on the parts distribution side and not on the manufacturing side. However, I can only imagine that it is. So if you'd like, I'm more than happy to ask our manufacturing side for their practices on swerf, and I can get back to you at a later time.
Okay, terrific, thanks. The other quick question I was going to ask about, I noticed, I think it was maybe Alanie's slides, you talked about ISO or using some ISO standards. Can you give us an idea of which standard you guys apply for waste reduction and how helpful or how easy or difficult it was to apply?
I'm not sure if that was Tami. We are ISO 14001 certified.
Okay,
On the waste side, that's more of just how we're managing waste, kind of almost more so on the compliance piece of it, how we're doing training with employees, but I don't think we don't get too much in the details of waste diversion, I feel like, in that certification.
okay, great. And Tami, I'm sorry, it might have been your slides that I saw that in.
It was, and thank you for noticing that. We currently are working on implementing ISO 50001 in our facilities. Although our PDCs are not ISO certified, we carry over that umbrella over those facilities and follow the same policies and procedures. So it's currently in implementations process right now. So I don't have some full statistics for you yet, but it's we're finding opportunities as we implement.
Oh, good. Okay, excellent. And just to make everyone's on webinar aware, the ISO 50001 standard is the energy management standard. And we at the DOE have two programs related to it. There's 50001 Ready, which is kind of a self-paced program. You go through the online tool called the 50001 Ready Navigator. And when you complete the 25 tasks in it, then you'll be eligible for DOE recognition. If you want to get your plant certified to ISO 50001, we've got a program called Superior Energy Performance that would be for that particular reason. So in any case, good. Well, if there's no other questions from the crowd, thank you all for joining today. We've been really happy to have you here. This is our contact information, and like I said, these slides will be shared in a couple of weeks. We look forward to having another quarterly webinar in hopefully about 3 months, and then we'll go from there. So